I have two presentations at this camp meeting. They're back to back. Let's open with a word of prayer. Holy God, we thank you. Help each of us as we bow before you to cloud out all the distractions that even now are pouring into our minds and hearts. Our worries and our fears, our worldliness, maybe our lusts, whatever would distract us, help us to push them away so that our minds and our hearts might be ready to understand what your will is for your people at this moment in Earth's history. In Jesus' name, amen. As we were preparing for this camp, and even through this camp meeting, I know that each of us has an awareness of the timing of this camp meeting. We know that we had restraints from the venue, but there was some planning to attempt to have this camp meeting before the November elections. It was not going to be feasible to have it before the July convention. For various reasons. But I think we've managed to get it at a time that is strategically important for all of us. I and the organizers spent some time trying to think what I should speak about here at this camp. Not only myself, not that we dictate what other speakers should say, but people have questioned the logic, the reasoning behind the selection of teachers that we had. At such a significant camp meeting. I speak for myself, but I have a belief that when we get to the end of this camp and we all return home, as we review and meditate upon the messages that we've heard, not each of us, but the majority of us, will see that God's work has been done in the selection of those teachers and the messages that they have shared with us. So even if that realization has not set upon you yet, I believe that it will. For my first presentation, I was asked to review some of the material that I've been teaching over the last several years. So as I began to review those presentations, I had to make a decision where I would begin, that review. So I chose to begin in 2021. And I've looked through the material for the past 4 years. So why would I have chosen 2021 as the starting point for this review process? So that we all know, this congregation is too big to have a dialogue with you. But I did ask a few people to sit at the front of the auditorium. No smiling. So they could help me. So I'm going to ask them to give feedback, but it's only those people on the front row. So any one of you, 7 of you, I think, why would I choose 2021 as the start? Does anybody shout out? So our current dispensation. Anyone else? Formalization. Is that what you said? On what line? So it's the formalization on the line of the 144,000. Anyone else? The agitation of the Sunday law begins in 2021. Anyone else? What does that mean? Fast brain, slow brain, she said. So what I'm wanting to do is just to work out what that waymark is, why we would have begun there before we discuss any studies that were done. Priest line ends. So if the priest line ends, what begins? What label would you want to give? Is that what you were thinking, Shemaine? You said the end of the line of the priests and the beginning of. You didn't finish. You don't want to say? Okay. So I've got the end of the priests, and someone said the start of the Levites. Harvest. Anyone else? Any other thoughts? Okay, so what was just said then was almost the same as the end of the priests, but you added a bit more that Shemaine left out. What waymark is 2021? So we've got Panium. Someone said something else. Right? Beneventum. Someone said Beneventum. Someone said the midnight cry on what line?
Institution.
The midnight cry on the 5th line, we'll call it. I think that's what Elder Terry called it today, did she? On the line of the institutions. Just want to make a point. I think it was earlier this year in Australia. The word institution began to take on a new meaning than that which Elder Tess gave it. I just want people to be clear on that. If you look at recent studies and ongoing studies, maybe by myself and others, when I'll use the word institution, it's going to be different to the way Elder Tess used it. If you have a question on that, submit it and we'll maybe be able to answer it. We all okay for 2021? Yeah, okay. So, sorry? Second Advent. So the end of the priests, and I'll put the second Advent. And Monica said it's the moment where the two lines of the priest and 144,000 stop overlapping. So I just want to look at the presentations that have been done. I did 30 presentations in 2021. 2022 was a slow year, only 14. Why was that? Why was 2022 a slow year? Sorry? Lockdown? I was locked down in 21. What significant happens in 2022 in our movement? Elder Tess begins the Vesper series. We didn't collude. We didn't confer with one another. But I ended up stepping back. from my teaching, so I wouldn't act as a distraction from the important work that she was doing with those Vesper studies. So that's why there were so few in 2022. 23 is 32 presentations. And we haven't finished this year yet. I'm already on 45. So I just found that statistic interesting. So I'll share this PDF after the presentation. It gives the country, the date of the camp meeting, the title of the presentation, and the date that the presentation was done. So that's everything in 2021. I've tried to ask people what happened in Brazil, and nobody can tell me what that means. Unless someone can help us, because apparently it's not even a proper language. I think, is it? Does anybody take ownership of that? It's something about not God. You can understand it, it's not Biant. So that's what I understood it to be. If you don't understand it, I think, or if you do understand it, it's not God. If you understand the subject, it's not God. So I didn't know what language that was because it's Latin. You know, someone said, and I said, I think that's Latin, by the way. Ibra. And I forgot. Google Translate doesn't do Latin. I think the meaning of that study was, if you go to review it, if you can understand it, it didn't come from God. Because God's ways are beyond understanding. Before we move on, just want to come back to this line. Can we finish this line off? Let's start with the symbols. How many more waymarks? 3 more waymarks, someone said. And someone said Boston. Is that right? Concord. Exeter. And what do we call that? Just a shut door. And we understand that to be the Sunday law. Is everybody okay with that? So we have those waymarks, and we have, I don't know how many, over 100 and nearly 130, 40 presentations. Do we have consensus on Concord? Seven people, put your hands up if you think we have consensus in our movement of what Concord is. Okay, if it's a consensus, that means there's only one position. If it's opinions, there are various, and it's not an established waymark. Put your hands up if you think it's an established waymark. I don't mean the symbol. I mean its application, the year and the event. Hands up if it's established in the movement. Okay, so for those here, not many people. Matter of opinion? You didn't vote. Oh, which one? Consensus. So it's about 50-50. Some people believe that it's an established waymark, and some people think it's not. We're going to go right through. Catherine, what's its year or application? Have any thoughts? I'm just going to put this down here. I'll redo my notes later on and tidy them up. So this is Concord. And you said it's Dobbs. Is that Dobbs v. Jackson? Can you just tell us what that is? Sorry? It's Rover. Okay. So it's SCOTUS. And it's E. It's the overturning of Roe v. Wade. And everybody knows what that means. Okay, so that's what you believe that to be. Sorry? That's fine. No, Curtis? Okay, so we're going to put the date. June 22. Oh, you're going to give them the date, 24th, 2022. That's not on it. I think it's been on, by the way. Yes, that's fine. No, I have to repeat. It's not work. Carry on. Okay. So Curtis says that's external and internal. It's the last Vesper study. Next. External. No, I'm asking external. So you don't know. She doesn't know what, she doesn't know if Concord is 2022. So you believe there's no consensus in the movement for Concord? So you've got something different. Okay, so someone said it's SCOTUS, and you're saying it's a war between King of the North and King of the South. So you're saying there are two events that mark Concord. So one is the warfare between the King of the South and the King of the North. Ukraine. And Roe v. Wade as well. Oh, so I've got Vespers. That's you say that's the same. Ah, okay. So we've got the Vespers, which is bookended from February to June. And the Ukraine war was February to June. And that 5 month period is Concord. Have you just given your opinion? Or that's the consensus in the movement? So you've got that to translate. So that's your opinion, not consensus. So you don't believe the movement has a consensus position on that. Okay. Next. Roe v. Wade. So we've got that. And Vespers. Is that a movement consensus? So you believe it's the movement consensus or you believe it's not? So you know that it is. So you don't know. You don't know if the movement has a consensus position on it. Okay. They're not working anyway. So I repeat what you say. Was that too long? My point. Yeah, I'll repeat what she said. So she's not persuaded that it's a movement position or a consensus position. It's her view. Okay. So it's not working. He believes that there's a consensus position that it's Roe v. Wade. And Vesper. So it's the same as what we've got here. Your personal opinion? There are other parts of Concord that are important, separate to Roe v. Wade. Justina? So Justina says it's number one as well. So there's 7 people contributing, and I think 6 of them have said it's Roe v. Wade as on the board. One person has added the Ukraine war. And one person said there's other issues as well. Okay. You'll have noticed I didn't go back to 21 to ask what that event was. Just want to double check with all 7 of you. Catherine, what's the definition of consensus or a movement position? How would you define that? So Catherine said 100% agreement. I don't know who your target audience is of the 100%. So she's not confident to give an answer. Everyone who says there's a consensus position, I want to know how you know. Curtis? Curtis doesn't know. To me, they never agreed that there was. I think that there isn't a consensus position. That there isn't one. So in the Netherlands and some friends, they've come to a consensus position that it is Roe v. Wade and the Vespers. And Justina? So Justina says she believes it's a consensus because she heard some presentations and she thinks it sounds good. The reason I'm asking this question because I want us to be clear about how we define consensus nowadays. Now that Elder Tess is not teaching, defining doctrine, each of us should have some idea of how we define a movement position. And if you didn't take the hint, I don't define doctrine. Or when I speak, it's not a movement position. I know some people think that's good. Some people struggle with it. One of the things that we're going to have to get to grips with, to understand, moving forward, is how we define movement positions. And that's why I use the word consensus. But there'll be more to say about that as time goes on. Seems to me that the 7 people that I asked, they all agree that Concord was externally the Roe v. Wade decision or Dobbs v. Jackson. And internally, it was the last or the Vesper studies, the end of the Vespers. So one person added Ukraine, the war between the King of the North and King of the South. And I don't know how many of you were familiar with that or it was new. So, as I said, we've left 2021. I want to go on to the next waymark. Exeter. So let's quickly talk about Exeter. From my left to my right. Tell me about Exeter. No information? No opinion? Curtis? No opinion. No opinion. No lying either. Tamina? No opinion. I think. May 30. Okay. Is that time zone? There were two presentations in May this year. That's the internal. So that's the internal waymark. And I assume you're saying that's Elder Terry. So that's Elder Terry's study on, at that moment, the forthcoming RNC convention. Externally? May 13. Oh, 30th, sorry. The conviction of Trump. Monica? No opinion? So Monica has no opinion, Ariane? So we agreed there's no consensus of what Exeter is. Share your opinion. Okay. So the external is the RNC convention. (15 to 18). Only one person has said that. Internal? So you'd go with that. You'd go with what Blessing said. That's the presentation. May 30, 31 was not the first time she presented this material. It was presented earlier in the year in April. I think 3 of us were there. And due to weather issues, those presentations were not able to be uploaded. So whether you call it time and chance, Murphy's Law, patterns, or providence, it gets moved to May 30, 31, which coincides with the conviction of Trump. So is that what you're going through? I'm just going to put Elder Terry. Justina? So Justina said she had no opinion. I'm not trying to persuade people in real time to change their minds. Elder Terry is on a public record saying that she didn't know what Exeter was or wasn't confident enough to make a statement about it publicly. I had asked one other person to be up the front and they're not here. Are you here in the back somewhere? Okay, they're not in the room for some reason. Something's happened. So I wanted to get their opinion on that. Okay, so Sunday law. Catherine? Yes, the event for Sunday law. There is no consensus on the Sunday law in our movement yet. Elder Terry's been very careful in her words. She's predicated her statements to say it's her understanding, her thoughts. So I'm asking for your understanding and your thoughts, if you have any. Just give us the event. Okay, November elections. Just going to put November because everybody knows it's the elections. Anything else? Oh, you didn't give an opinion for Exeter. It doesn't work like that in a presentation like this. You just give us your opinion or don't. No opinion? Okay, so I'm going to put two here. We've got two people who've gone for the RNC convention. Curtis? So I'll put the elections, and I've got someone who's saying the RNC convention. Come in. Listen. Nope. Just give me the election. Just the election. I'm sorry, Sunday law. I mean, Sunday law. Tell me what you think Sunday law is. You have no opinion. Arian? So it's 2025 somewhere. and it's not necessarily the college count, electoral college count, or the inauguration. It could be something different. But you're saying it's in 2025. After January 2025, which means it's after the inauguration, which is around the 20th, I think. Stina? So we have 3 people saying that, 2 and 1. Okay, so this is an interesting camp meeting. Unusual. It's the first one I've ever been to, I think, that rank and file members, just regular members, are willing to publicly state they disagree with one of the speakers. In real time. So that's another first. So I want us to all to see that there are, I'll use the word casually. The word that I'm going to use, I'll use it casually. There are clever, intelligent, well-informed people in our movement all claiming to use methodology, the same methodology, and we cannot come up with a consensus position. So I don't know what that makes you feel like. I want to mention 2 people. I wanted to do it the other way, but I always remember it this way. Jones and Wagner. So any of you, I don't mean literally, but who are Jones and Wagner? What's their role? They're messengers. Okay, so we don't have that many messengers. What messengers are they? Symbolically, yes. So someone said the 3rd angel. Sorry? Someone said the 3rd angel. That was you, Arian? Anyone else? 3rd angel. Yep. So there seems to be a consensus that these 2 people were the 3rd angel. Not the 2nd angel. Not a trick question. I asked if it, and no, I asked it's not the 2nd angel, and everybody was silent. That Ellen White's not the 3rd angel, and they're there to support. They bring a message that doubles down that doubles down or reinforces the third angel? I'm just asking. It's not my suggestion. So Curtis is saying, I think he's going to change from the third angel to the second. Listen. Oh, okay. So we're saying it's either the third or the second. I put angel because it's not a rival. So whether it's the third or the second, what I want to point out is that there were two people that were selected. And I don't know if you've ever thought about that it wasn't an individual that was raised up to do that work in that history. So this is my bit of apology and defense. What's Wagner? No, we'll do him in a minute. What's Joan waxing eloquently when he's giving the message? What's the focus of his attention, of his message? Don't quote me from recent presentations. Righteous by faith, civil rights, which is a code word, righteous by faith. Righteousness by faith or justification. Sunday law. Righteous by faith. You don't know? Which one's your opinion? Righteousness by faith. So we've got 6-1 on righteousness by faith. And the Sunday law. Here comes the kicker. Trick. What's Wagner's role? Catherine? What's his message? Yes. Jones is righteousness by faith. So what's Wagner? So Catherine says the same. Same. To me, says she doesn't even know what his job is. Sorry. Righteousness by faith. Don't know. Righteousness by faith. Don't know. So half of our leading thinkers can't resist, have not read Wagner's material, which is very bad. We can say it with a smile, but seriously, it's not good. And everybody tells me it's too late to go back and read their books. Because we've got not enough time. So just want to be clear that people don't know what Wagner's role was. So either it took two people to do the same job, and they're already saying, no, that doesn't make sense, or they had different roles. So let's cut to the chase. Let's come up with the answer. That's why I said don't repeat what I've said. Because when I say Jones, I mean Jones and Wagner, which is not accurate. So I'm going to suggest, and I do ask that you go and research this, that Jones focuses on, I'm going to call it one issue: current affairs. And they're all saying, that's what I meant. And the current affairs, symbolically, not even symbolically, maybe even literally, is Sunday law. Hope we can all see that. And Wagner, all these esoterical thoughts that he had, was righteousness by faith, or you can call it justification by faith if you like. I mention that. Why? Curtis. Because there's an internal message that's given to God's people. And the movement or God's people need to understand what's happening externally. Anyone else want to give their thoughts? You've got to tell me what that means. So if that was required then, perhaps we should expect two messages. One that focuses on righteousness by faith. For shortness of time, I won't ask them. But I'm going to call that preparation. And a second message that speaks about events. Any comments? Curtis. You got any thoughts on this? So I just wanted to wrap this up. We may go back to it. In that history, two messengers, or we'll say two messages were raised up. I don't want us to focus that it's two human beings. Just happened to be two human beings then with two messages. There's no question that there was an overlap. And if that was required in that history, perhaps we should expect the same in ours. And if we go back to which way, Mark? If we go back to this line here that we've got on the board, beginning in 2021, your comment? What I personally have been studying so the focus of my presentations have been on how individually we prepare for the Sunday law. If we want to call it righteous by faith or justification by faith. So I just want to summarize this thought. We may not go through every presentation that I've done in any detail. But if you go through the 122, I think it is. So I'll actually tell you the number. Yep. If you go through the 122 presentations I've done over the past 4 years, they've almost all been exclusively on the subject of righteousness by faith. It comes under different titles. And what that has meant is that I've not spoken about the Sunday law in the way that I'd spoken about the Sunday law 12 years ago. The reason why I want to make that point is because how we move forward discussing or considering consensus is something that I think we need to really focus upon. So I just want to ask a question. Sinful nature is the same as sinless nature. Fast brain, slow brain is the same as lower powers, higher powers. I only mentioned 2. Catherine, is that a movement consensus or a movement position? Yes. Curtis? Yes or no? This is the trap. Yes. Yes. No. Yes. No. Yes. So all the people that said no, which is I think 2.5 people, is because they took the point that I don't define doctrine. But I'm pretty sure almost everybody believes what's on the board. And they're all based upon my studies. And that's just some things on the surface. There are dozens, literally dozens of ideas or concepts all connected with righteousness by faith that I guess people would say I'm the author of. And they've become those ideas have been embedded in the minds of the members in this movement. And despite the fact that I don't define doctrine, I think these are consensus positions or movement positions. So I want us to see the problem that confronts us. Let's close with prayer. Holy God, we thank you that you have been speaking to your people and preparing us for the work that is currently needing to be done, to the events that are happening right now, and also for those that are about to come upon this world as a surprise. May each of us, as we review our personal experience and the experience that this movement has gone through, see your hand controlling our individual lives and the direction in which this movement goes. You have raised up leaders and you have brought them down, because at the end, in conclusion, this is your movement and your will be done. May each of us begin to settle into that truth in a way that we may not have done to this moment. In Jesus' name. Amen.